Hi everyone, how's everyone doing today? Welcome to my photo editing live stream where you can submit your images before the stream starts and edit them here for you live. And today again, I'll be using DxO's Photolab 8. It is my favorite photo editor and photo editor of choice. I believe it gives the best results. And DxO is very kind to give my viewers a 15% discount. So if you download the free trial down below, and you order it, you can use my 15% coupon and take that off the top of the price. So it's pretty substantial savings. I don't know what the current price is now. It's around a $200 software, but I think it's worth it. And I've been a DxO user since I think Photolab 4, and it's been you know my been my editor of choice since. So um, let me I see in the chat here. I see Oh, B. Hi, B. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate that. Um, so I do have a 99-cent membership, which is supports, all of the live streaming that I do here, the photo editing, the photo chats, the uh, shopping for deals. There's some really good deals today, actually. So go to robtrek.com/deals. Like 50% off some nice stuff. Maybe I'll share some of those at the end. I didn't get a lot of images today. So if you're joining the stream now, you're welcome to submit another image during the stream because I only have 5 or 6 here. So, and I usually spend a couple hours editing your photos, and I'll try and think out loud my thought process and the tools that I'm using. And so don't take anything I say as a criticism or critique. It's strictly uh, how I would edit the photo, and it's very very subjective. What I see in the image versus what maybe you saw when you took the image. We could have two very different visions of the same scene. So, like I said, just look at this as a way to see how to use the tools of Photolab 8 so that you can apply your own creative choices in when you're editing your photos. And a lot of the tools here are similar across multiple photo editing software. Brightness, shadows, highlights. So you don't have to have Photolab 8 to, I think, gain something from this session. But that said, the tools in Photolab are very intuitive for me and just work with the way my brain works when I approach editing a photo. And that's why I've been using it. So it's not just the final output that I think is delivers the best. It's also, I think, the workflow very fluid. Not everybody's brain is wired the same way, so this workflow may not, make any sense to you at all. But uh, like I still struggle with Darktable and a little bit with Luminar Neo. But the workflow here is not too dissimilar, say, from Lightroom. And I think I saw a question here in the chat. So let's see. Really? Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know why this happens. But the question here is, hey, Robin, your opinion, is DxO Photolab better than Lightroom? Have you used both? What are your thoughts? So these short answer is yes. I think DxO Photolab is better than Lightroom. The final output of the results in terms of the quality that you get when you export the images for sharing or printing, whatever your output is, it gives the very best results. The DxO optics module is pretty solid. The denoising is best in the industry, in my opinion. It can denoise an image, extract the most details with the fewest artifacts, and uh, and they're continuing to improve it every year. So you know, they're not just sitting, put something out, then make minor changes. They make some pretty substantial changes at least every other year. Uh, so like a lot of things, it's best to upgrade every other version, right, of a software, and then you kind of get the most bang for your buck that way. Compared to Lightroom, Lightroom does a very good job as well. They introduced AI denoising as well. But what I found was that the denoising in Lightroom is not as good, meaning, uh, you know, it's not as clean or crisp, doesn't extract quite as many details. It's close enough though, right? If you're using Lightroom now, and you're happy with it, I wouldn't say switch, but I will say that the denoising AI in Lightroom isn't quite there yet because I still get weird artifacts uh, in when I denoise images. Like if I'm denoising a grassy area of a field, it'll like denoise some of the grass because it sees it as noise, and then other parts of the grass it'll mush together and make it look soft and weird. So DxO doesn't do that. DxO is a much more does a much better job with these kinds of scenes where the noise and the detail in the scene are not separated very well in Lightroom, but DxO does a better job. So you get less artifacts and less patchiness and stuff when you have very noisy images or images that have noise-like patterns, but they're actually not noise. It's actually detail in the image. So the strengths and weaknesses though between the two, like I said, I've talked about the strengths of DxO in terms of the output, the workflow, and the final result, the denoising, the optics module. All of these things are much better in Photolab. The uh, I would say the key difference with Lightroom is the integration with Photoshop and the cataloging feature. So the cataloging feature is kind of its Achilles heel. Some people catalog all of their images using Lightroom, and they like what they call data asset management of their images. And there's certainly a lot of truth to that. It is very, very useful, but it adds a lot of overhead to the program. So it gets a little slow and clunky sometimes, and you have to optimize the catalog, and you have to keep that catalog organized. And there are people that are far better at organizing their assets than I am with Lightroom, and they probably have a workflow that might be more fluid and intuitive. But I have not been able to work with the Lightroom catalog in the most optimal way. So you may love it, you may hate it. I'm kind of neutral on it. I don't, I don't use it. I don't have to, but I do use it sometimes to find images uh, that would be very difficult to find if I were to use DxO. Uh, so DxO's search feature and finding images is a little bit clunky compared to Lightroom, but Lightroom can be, like I said, Lightroom has a lot of overhead and just is a little sluggish sometimes when you start getting thousands, tens of thousands of images. Uh, the other key advantage of Lightroom is they have a lot of integration of other features like HDR, panorama. Uh, it does a really good job at selecting subjects and eliminating uh, objects from the scene. So if you want to get rid of a light post or get rid of a person standing on the side or get rid of a plate on a table, uh, Lightroom is second to none. And the integration with Photoshop is seamless. The workflow between Lightroom and Photoshop is very good. So you can go from working with several images in Lightroom, bring them into Photoshop, layer them, and start doing your own exposure blending, which is what I do a lot of. Uh, you can do panoramic shots, and it does really good job with that. The HDR feature is pretty good. I think DxO has a better DxO HDR feature in their Nick collection. I think it's superior, but it's a separate thing you have to buy. I think it's worth it, but things start to add up, right? So it depends. I don't know what you pay where you are for Lightroom, but for me, it's like I pay $120 a year for Lightroom and Photoshop. And I have to use it because of that integration between Photoshop and Lightroom and uh, all of the layering type of editing that I do. Uh, but when I'm editing single images, one at a time, I always pre-process everything in DxO, apply the optics module, denoise, do the sharpening, and then I might take them into Photoshop, and I skip Lightroom altogether because Photoshop really does a lot of heavy lifting for very complicated type editing situations, right? When you have to do layering and stuff. Uh, so I think they're both an excellent value, and I have both. If I didn't have to do layering and things, uh, I would only use DxO, but because of some of my professional work requires exposure blending and layering, uh, and the workflow is very smooth, and the tools are pretty powerful with object removal and things like that. I use Photolab mostly, for that mostly. But I would say 90% of the images that I do for my personal stuff and other things, I don't really need Photoshop, right? I'm just editing single images. So you have to kind of balance, you spend a couple $100 in Photolab, whatever the price is, one time, and they update the optics modules for many years. I I haven't tried recently, but I know for a couple of years after they released the Photolab 5 and Photolab 6, they were still updating the optics modules and adding cameras and compatibility. So you can count on DxO to keep you updated. And you don't have to upgrade, but eventually you'll want to upgrade because there's going to be improvements in Photolab. Uh, so that's kind of my take on it. Is I need both, but I think most people can get away with only Photolab 8. If you want to do panoramic stitching or HDR, for panoramic, there's a free software called Hugin, Hugin, that does an excellent job, as good as uh, Photoshop, in my opinion. So far. I haven't really run across too many problems. It's a free software, so it's a little bit clunky. The interface is a little bit dated, but it works well. And I'm going to do a video tutorial on it uh, so that for people that are using Photolab 8 and want to start getting into doing panoramas, I can show you how to use that with Hugin and uh, and do that. There's also some free HDR software. I tried a couple, and they're okay. But really, the solution for DxO is to get Nick collection for another 80, $100. I think I can't remember the price because not only do you get HDR, you get a bunch of other plugins that are very popular, like Silver Effects and the um, color effects and things like that. And all of those are really excellent tools as well. But it's more for the creative type people, right? That you want to make dramatic changes in colors and tones and working in black and white. Uh, Really, I think Nick Collection is kind of the leader in that area. Uh, but, you know, that's what I'm familiar with. Now, I saw someone, I think Serge mentioned Luminar Neo. Luminar Neo is also excellent and it's very competitively priced. I think it's a little cheaper than DxO and it has some great tools, but the workflow is very different. For some, it's very intuitive and they love it, right? For me, I'm struggling a little. I'm starting to get the hang of it. I struggle a little bit with it because it is very different workflow from DxO and Lightroom. But I do get very, very good results with Luminar Neo. And I believe it has a lot of additional features. I haven't tried it, but I think it does stacking and it might do panoramas and HDR. I haven't explored those features yet, but I believe they're available. And they have some AI tools that do a pretty decent job. as always, you have to kind of always uh, get a feel for what kind of images work best with different AI tools that are in Luminar Neo, as any software tool that has AI tools. Once you get a feel for it, you can get really, really good results for the images that it does best on. Like I was talking about Lightroom, how the AI noise reduction doesn't really do well with grassy areas or where there's a lot of repeating patterns that look like noise. So I have to be careful with the AI noise reduction in Lightroom with that. But Luminar Neo has its same kind of limitations where sometimes the AI doesn't do what you wanted or expected, or the results are not very good. The Luminar AI noise reduction is nowhere near as good as Lightroom or DxO Photolab as of this point. So it's it works, but the results are far away from what you can do with the AI tools, Lightroom and DxO. So that's kind of my overall take. Uh, so what I would say is think about, and there's one other software out there. I don't know if they still sell it, but it's Photolab or Photoshop Elements. That probably has about 90% of everything you would do in Photoshop, the paid version. Photoshop Elements is like $100. There's a lot of tools in there: HDR, panorama, face detect, all kinds of cataloging features. It's very, very powerful for the money, and it's basically a subset of the monthly subscription that most people pay. The workflow is not as smooth. It's missing some tools. There's a reason it's only $100 versus, say, paying $120 a year. It doesn't get updated every year. So if you buy a camera later, uh, it may not work. You may not be able to edit the raw files, things like that. So there's a lot of limitations with Photoshop Elements long term. Short term, it's pretty good solution. And if you're not the kind of person to buy 10 different cameras like me and buy a new camera every year, Photoshop Elements may be also a viable option. But I'm I know that the results are not as good as DxO Photolab, and the workflow is not as flexible as Photoshop and Lightroom package. It's limited and it's awkward and clunky sometimes, especially with the layering. Because I was thinking Photoshop Elements does layering. I can get the workflow down to something as smooth because my layering requirements aren't that sophisticated, right? But I wasn't able to get the workflow down in a very smooth way because I'm dealing with hundreds of images on a photo job that I have to layer and stack and blend and remove objects, and it just was not designed for professional use working with bulk images. But I think for the enthusiast, for the person that's just starting, Photoshop Elements is also a very good option. So look at all of those, download the free trials for them all. Elements, Photolab, Neo, uh, and there's another one out there. There's a couple others out there that I'm not as familiar, like ACDC. There's free ones out there like Darktable, GIMP. People get very good results with those and don't pay anything. Some of those are free software, right? So there's a ton of options, and you can kind of go in any direction. But I can say that for the most part, if you get the exposure done well in camera, get the exposure that you want, you really need very minimal editing a lot of times. These photo editing tools are for really making dramatic changes to the image, a lot of times. But as you'll see when I start editing. Okay, and a lot of people say Topaz denoising is best, not the one in Photolab. Is that true? Okay, Topaz is more flexible with the kind of file types that it uses. So you can throw a JPEG at it and denoise it. So that's kind of a big plus. That said, you can denoise JPEGs in DxO, but you're a little bit more hands-on with the noise reduction process. You have to adjust sliders, and it takes a little more work to kind of denoise other file types that are not raw. Photolab is primarily a raw editor, and I can get very similar results to Topaz Denoise on non raw images, but the workflow is a little bit takes a little longer and a little more practice to get it right. But for raw images, uh, it's pretty close. Pretty close. I think you'll be happy either way with Topaz or with DxO. And I think ultimately DxO with the optics module is better. I tried Topaz before in the past. I did not get as good as results as I did in DxO. I've not tried the very latest. They got some photo AI software now. I've not tried that. I may download a free trial and see if I can compare. But I know that DxO, I'm always going to get the very best, if not the very best, close enough, right? That you'd have to pixel peep, see the difference between one or the other. I think DxO Photolab is always going to be on the leading edge and always have the edge over any other software. If they fall behind, one version, by the next version, they'll be back on top. But we're talking about really excellent software between Topaz and DxO. Just a matter of which one has the better workflow for you, because DxO also offers Pure Raw, which is purely a denoising software, denoising and sharpening, right? Okay. Oh, Pure Raw 5. Yeah, they emailed me that I might have to try that. I'll download the free trial and see what it's like. I think the key thing to Pure Raw 5, of course, there's going to be a little better denoising overall, right? Maybe extract a little more detail without adding noise. But I think the key thing was that they now demosaic the Fujifilm X-Trans sensor much better. I have noticed that the X-Trans sensor, my Fujifilm files, again, I have to pixel peep to see the difference, but uh, it's not done quite as well as, say, Capture One does Fujifilm files. Capture One, up to this point, has been the very best Fujifilm editor. And Pure Raw 5 supposedly puts them on top again. But I don't know. I'd have to download it and try it and see. Uh, but I think if you're shooting any other camera brand, a standard Bayer sensor, you don't need to worry about Pure Raw 5 at this point. Or uh, you can work with just Photolab 8 or Pure Raw 4. I'll have to see what Pure Raw 5 brings, if really anything new there. Oh, yeah, ads. I have the ads set to the minimum. You can't, even if I turn them off, then they still show up. So I just put it at the very minimum. It's called conservative, I think, in the settings. So hopefully you don't get interrupted too much. And Lightroom can only denoise raw files. Can DxO denoise other file types? No, it doesn't denoise any different than Lightroom does, where you have to manually use the sliders. So it will denoise a little better than Lightroom, non-raw files, but it's a workflow thing. You can tweak either one and get pretty much the same result. Just like Topaz. Topaz, the workflow is very smooth. You don't have to work quite as hard to get a non-raw file denoised, but the results are not much better than if you spend a little time in the other software. And if I run across a JPEG image that might illustrate this, I'll demonstrate that. Good morning, Drew. And Ernest says, I like mainly night photography, photos like star trails, moonscape shots, moon landscape, I'm sorry, shots where there isn't much light. For all this, is Photolab or Lightroom better for me? I would definitely go for I'm sorry, DxO, because the dark areas, a lot of that gets crushed down to black, but as you start to grade up into the lighter tones, that's where the denoising algorithm in DxO, I think, is doing a better job than Lightroom. And you're going to get less banding or blockiness in the denoised image if you need to denoise. But the thing with night photography is about composing and managing the light that you have or the light that you don't have, and composing the image in a way that the shadows and the dark areas are actually crushed almost completely to black, so you don't have to worry about it. But use that to make the rest of the composition kind of stand out and focus on your subject. Again, I'm being very subjective here, but that's how I would shoot a night scene. Star trails, things like that. DxO, always gotten very good results. And yeah, Serge says he uses Luminar Neo. If I need Photoshop, I haven't taken the right photo. Yep. And which one is best for focus stacking? I would argue that, well, okay, so Lightroom, I'm sorry, Photolab does not have focus stacking, right? Lightroom does. Through you have to round turn to Photoshop to do it, and Photoshop does okay. I didn't find Photoshop stacking to be particularly good. A lot of people like to buy Helicon Focus, and they get much better results. And personally, I just use Photoshop because I have it. But if I didn't use Photoshop, I would use a free software called Picolay. It's called PICA or PICOLAY. I use that. Uh, the workflow is awkward. It's not good like Photolab, or Photoshop, but that's what I would use with DxO is Picolay and Huggins, so I can supplement my focus stacking requirements and uh, panoramic requirements. But a lot of people like Helicon for stacking if you want to buy something. If you don't want to buy something, you can try Picolay. Uh, and if you buy Photoshop, just use the one in Photoshop, but the results are not quite as consistent. In earnest, I don't mean just for denoising, but editing in general, low light, things like contrast, brightness. I guess DxO Photolab is still better. I think so. I think so because of the workflow. I mean, ultimately, when we're talking about just changing colors and lighting, right, luminance, both software are going to do the exact same kind of math, right? They're just going to add and subtract numbers from the RGB data. Uh, however, um, the workflow in DxO using the control points, I think, is very smooth and very fast and gives more natural results very quickly. You can do the same thing in Lightroom, but there's no comparison in workflow. DxO, and you'll see as I'm editing. I should get to editing here. I'm about a half hour in. So hopefully that answered a lot of the questions there. Let's go ahead and get into the, let me just add one more here from William. I normally say that Lightroom is for editing while Photoshop is for creative, but I think Photoshop is better for astrophotography stacking than Lightroom. Yeah, absolutely. If you're doing astrophotography stacking, Lightroom or Photoshop for now is the only one that will do it without buying something else. Typically, though, for deep sky astrophotography and other types of astrophotography, there's a free software called Cyril that is the best. If you really want to get into astrophotography, like hardcore, you can forget about Photoshop and just use Cyril, and uh, and then use any basic photo editor to touch the image up if you want. Uh, Nothing, Photoshop can do it, but the workflow is pretty intense. Cyril just simplifies everything so quickly, and it's absolutely free. Okay, so and I see PRJWL only. I'm sure I can pronounce that right, but how you doing? What's going on? We're gonna start editing here. Sorry about that. Let me arrange my screens and see what came in. And we'll start here, one from Serge, actually. So, okay, we have a birdie. This looks familiar. Like, I mean, this bird, I've seen this bird before. Not this specific image. Ooh, the background composition. We have this building almost framing the bird. It'd been nice if it was a little bit higher. But I'm going to go ahead and apply my basic preset. And I'm going to apply a square crop. And I like to tighten these up a little bit. Let me get into the editing panel. Let's just tighten up. So I always like to do the basic composition first, the crop. And let me think about, I want them kind of a little bit empty space on the left side, maybe. Maybe not. But yeah, let's just center it. I'm going to center the bird. It's pretty close. Okay, now I'm going to select the bird. And when I do birds, it's always eyes, beak, and talons. And what I'm going to do though first, actually, I normally do eyes, beaks, and talons first, but I'm going to try and just select the bird. And this is the auto selection tool that Photolab offers. It's not quite as good as Photoshop's, but it gets the job done. I'm just going to brighten the bird up a little bit. Excuse me. And yeah, that's good. And then as you can see, it bled a little bit here, so I'm going to get my eraser and just fix, just pepper off some of this, some of the edges, so it's a little bit smoother. Okay. That looks good. Now, let me get to the eyes. And I'm going to brighten those up. I always push the shadows, hopefully to get some color from the eye. And then I apply clear view to make it a little bit shiny, along with some micro contrast to bring out some of the highlights a little better without making the eye look too gray. I don't see. That's okay. Let me expand this out a little bit. Just make the area around the eye a little brighter. Now let's work on the beak. And go here. I'm going to tighten up the mask a little bit if I can. Okay, that's not bad. So to the beak, I'm just going to do some micro contrast and some clear view. Maybe just a slight push, shadows and midtones. Then I'll apply the same thing to the talons. Just a little bit, maybe a little bit more push. Okay, good. So eyes, beaks, talons, the body. And let's see. Let's add maybe a little vignette. It's a little bit of brightness here. Do I need to clean that up? Let me get out my eraser. That might have been there before. Yeah. Yeah, that's light that was in the original. Okay. Let's do sort of a vignette. Let me reverse this. And I can put this out. I'm going to turn the luma and chroma off. Okay, that's better. And then we'll just bring the exposure down. Spread this out a little bit more. Too much. And I'm going to cool it off maybe. Let me see what that looks like. Just cool that down a little bit. Maybe about 5,000. Okay. There's some of the green hue that I'm seeing. Okay. Let me see how we're doing. All right, and then I'm going to add a little bit more light coming in from the right side. Put this here. And we're going to warm that up a little bit. Do one more. Darken this side a little bit. This one. Cool it off a tiny bit. Okay, and maybe one more mask here. Okay, where's my vignette? This one. Let's see. Just pull that, adjust that slightly. And over here. Touch a clear view. Just even this out a little bit. I'm going to export that as a JPEG. and preserve sRGB. Do the same folder. Let's see how we did. That export. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. Let me reset this. And do a side by side here. So here's the original, here's the edit, and it's a little bit bright. I should probably bring this down a little bit. But if we zoom in, I darken this a little bit, it'll be nicer. But I think it did a good job. Oh, my big head's in the way. I think, Photolab did a good job at extracting the details. A little bit on the edge here I need to fix, a little bit of haloing. Okay, let me fix that real quick. The original auto mask. I just need to, what I'm going to do is just use my eraser brush, kind of deal with, to soften that haloing that I was getting. Okay. Okay, I think that looks a little better. Very good. So I got rid of the haloing. I'm not going to export it again, but I just wanted to kind of show you how I would get, see there's just a little bit of haloing here. So using the eraser brush, it'll mitigate that quite a bit. Because I kind of overdid it with the auto selection tool. All right, let's go to the next one here. And let's see, looks like we got another film scan from a movie set. Thank you, Jeff. These are always so cool. So we got a nice TIFF file. And, these film scans, I always hate to edit too much because it looks, I just really like the authentic look of film. But I can see there's a little bit of green or blue kind of color cast in here. So we might try and get rid of that. Maybe straighten it up a little bit and just give it a little more, I don't know, I think that the tones, the luminance and tones are fine. But I'm going to straighten it a little bit. I don't need to do a basic preset because there's no optical data. Let me see if the perspective thing can. I'm just looking at. That's not too bad. I'm looking at these guys' legs. They're looking a little bit too big with this perspective correction. So I'm just going to reduce this a little bit. But I do want to keep that correction. And then we will drop in. So see, compositionally, we got his feet, these legs. Okay. Now there's a mild color cast here. I think maybe due to the film's age. So this is a little bit of a challenge. I've never tried this before, but let's pick. I think I see it a lot here. The green cast. Yeah, so I'm getting green in here. I'm going to try and shift this back a little bit yellow. is this color? This is... Okay, let me reset. I need to stretch this a little bit more into the blues. Now let's shift it. All right, good. Something like that. Let me see. That's with the green cast, without. All right, maybe just a little bit more. All right. Then let's see what color I have in the face. I'm gonna get this dropper. What colors do I have here? Yeah, I'm pretty much in the right area. How about this guy? He's still got a little bit of a green. So does this person. So let me if I can fix some of this kind of gradually. We're going to pick the skin tones mostly. Kind of up in here. This guy, might have to come back to that one. All right. If we can do the same thing, stretch this out and just shift it. Not getting the effect I want here. Okay. I can do... Gosh, this green cast is really strong. Go back to the... Go back to this color wheel here. Push this up a tiny bit. Okay, there we go. A little bit of a white balance fix. Then may not need to shift this quite as much. Right about there. All right. Then, so basically what I'm trying to do is just for what I think is just because the film is aged a bit. I'm just guessing. I'm going to brighten the faces a bit. Maybe spread that out a little on the chest. A bit more light. Okay. And let's do a tiny bit of sharpen. Well, maybe a little bit of micro contrast. And go to the global. Let's just sharpen this up a little bit. So I'm going to use a pretty big radius. Adjust the threshold a bit, about 1 or 2. There. The the adjustments I'm making here are going to be very, very hard to see through a stream, but okay. I think that's about it. Maybe fix see if I can fix this these little dust spots here and there. All right. Where are we at? Whoops. Let's do a side by side there. Okay. All right, so that's my edit. Yeah, I think that came out pretty good. I need to fix one more little dust spot here, maybe. Let's see. Down there. But yeah, it was primarily this green cast, right? Greenish, slightly blue cast, a little bit of uh, perspective correction, and a couple of dust spots. And then I did some minor sharpening. Uh, that's going to be hard to see on the stream, but it just gets rid of that. Just takes a little bit of that softness away that's in the image. And I think that looks pretty good. I didn't have to denoise it all because the image is crisp. Uh, this Jeff, I'm curious. This is not a 35 millimeter, is it? That's really there's very, very little grain in this image. I imagine this is a larger format. So let me know. Uh, what size film was this? Was this 35? It could be. Could be a 35. But I think that looks really good. That came out really good. It was mainly just fixing that color casting. Okay. It was definitely a 35. Yeah, when I punched in, I was like, okay. Yeah, now I see it's a 35. But when I backed out, it looks okay. All right. Let's see. This looks like a very similar bird. Okay. Let me do a basic preset here. I like to do square when I'm doing mostly wildlife. Let's tighten this up a bit. And this time I'll try and do a little better job with the auto selection tool. Okay. All right, good. And then get my eraser and fix some of this potential haloing that we might get. All right, and then let's do the eyes. I don't think the eyes are going to give me much help here, but we'll see. Shadow, give us some clear. Yeah. Eyes are black. So we'll just leave it there. And talons look okay. The beak could use just a little help. Give it a little push there, some clear view and some contrast. We can spread that a little. There we go. Go back to this eraser. That's a bit hot down there. There we go. Okay. Let's go a little brighter. So we're almost 2 stops, but I'm going to bring that exposure down. Just brush in here a little bit more. Brighten this a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to warm up the image. Okay, I don't think this really needs much else. I could do maybe a little bit of a vignette. Put something in the center here, bring it out, chroma off, reverse it, and bring that down. Okay, export that. Good. And let's do side by side. Reference. There. Okay. So a little bright. Let me fix that. Okay. A little bit too bright. My Okay, that looks better. Okay, so yeah, that's a little more natural looking. So there's the original. We have this huge, area here that I cropped out. And the bird is very dark, so I just tried to bring a little bit more light onto the bird. So if we zoom in, again, I think, whoops, think DxO did a good job extracting as much as we can, considering there's probably only about 1 megapixel on this bird, if that. But we were able to recover it. So there's the before and after. And then just warmed it up a little bit. It was a cloudy day. Okay. Darko. There's a lot of okay. Let me. I'm gonna finish editing these images and then I'll get back to the chat. I spent the first half hour just answering questions. Okay. Let's see. This one here is from Paul. Okay, so it's a balloon. This pole. There was something on the left side. I could do something with this pole, but there's nothing here. So let's apply basic preset. And this is an ISO 10,000. Do a square. Enter that. I don't know if I can crop it to where there's. I'd like a little more on the bottom. Do just a little more on top. Okay, that's pretty good. There's a nice glow here. So at ISO 10,000, we're losing some of the dynamic range. I'm going to have to try and expand this glow best I can. There's a little bit of nice glow in the sky too. So I think if I can accentuate that, let me see what the auto lighting does. Nothing. I'm going to have to work with the scene. Let me just do a little bit of global brightening here. Maybe just a half a stop. Let's see if I can bring this glow out a little bit. Sure. That. Not really getting. Okay. We'll do that. Maybe put a dab down here. No. Work with that separately. There's a little bit of color in the sky here. So let me see if I can expand on that a little bit. I'm going to tighten up the Luma. Go. Tighten that up a little bit. Very, very subtle. Normally, I don't have to do the chroma luma masking that tight by using very high numbers, but I want to make sure that I capture these colors. that. Like there might be a little up here too. Let's see. We'll come back to that. All right. Add a little bit of glow down here. Okay. And a little bit more light on this balloon. A little bit of a warmth. Touch. Very similar one down here. And see, might need to use a brush. Let me just use a brush up here. But a very low brush. So flow is very, very low at 15. Let's drop the opacity too. And I'm gonna push highlights. Okay, good. Do the same thing right there, a little bit more, more, more there. And down here. When I have the flow really low, it's just adding it 15% at a time. So if I run my brush over 15 times, that'll be 100%. But I want to do it gradually. That's why I have the flow down very low. All right, I think that's pretty much it. It's a little crooked. I don't want to mess with that. Maybe pull the blacks in a tiny bit. If I can just do that globally. Clear view. Ooh, no. Oh, no, no. Something like that. And then just a little bit of shade up in here. Let me tighten up the Luma mask. Maybe the chroma would be better. I'm gonna pixel peep a little bit here. I want to make sure. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to do that. So let me get rid of this. What if I do that? Let me pixel peep it again. That's better. What I'm looking for is like blotchiness. When I tighten up the chroma and luma mask, sometimes it starts to get blotchy because you made them too tight. That looks all right. So I need to get my brush again and just go a little bit more in here. I don't want to get a halo either. Let me make this brush a little smaller. Okay. All right, I'm going to call it there. Let me export this one. Set. Let me just reference. Okay, so here's obviously the edited image on the left and the original on the right. I might have been able to remove this pole with a healing brush and then eventually get a little bit wider frame because this is a little bit tight. That's okay. I decided not to try that because sometimes you can, it doesn't, it's hard to remove a pole like this. Even in Photoshop with the generative AI, sometimes it struggles with this too, but rather than mess with it here, I think this looks pretty good. And if we zoom in, you can see what a nice job DxO does with detail and removing noise. Like you can see the lettering over here, whereas over here it's practically unlegible. And the other thing is, when I was editing this photo, being at ISO 10,000, not only do you deal with noise, you deal with sort of a limited dynamic range. You're crushing your highlights and shadows, or you're limiting your highlight and shadow flexibility. So I artificially sort of expanded the glow from the flame here all the way up to this part. And then I wanted to illuminate inside the balloon as well, but I didn't put as much yellow up here. So I think that looks pretty good. And then of course the sky, I can see a very slight hint of color. Because looks like morning light, right? So I wanted to exaggerate that to some extent. Uh, But okay, I think that looks pretty good. Let's go to the next one. Some kind of camera museum or exhibit. This is cool. We have some really strong highlights in the background. I'm not going to be able to recover those, definitely, because those are gone. I'm pretty sure. Let me just see. Yeah, those highlights are gone. So what we need to do is let's apply a square crop. And I get it. You got +2 EV because you're trying to expose for the subject here and not the windows. So this would be a good candidate for bracketing or HDR, right? Let me do perspective. Let's see if that gives me a little bit. I just like straight lines. I think that looks okay. We'll come in. I need to think about this for a second. Uh, what this was without. Okay. Hey, look at this composition. Hmm. I'm trying to see if there's a way I can use these highlights as a compositional tool. I just have too many elements here for me to. Okay. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Clear view. The midtones here. Man, go back to the square. Hmm. A little bit rectangular. I want to get both. Okay. The add work on the shadows. Okay. Oops. Hold on. Sorry about that. Okay. Let me go to here. Go in here and just pull the blacks in. It's not gonna work. Micro contrast. Okay. See where we're at here. Good, good. That looks good. One more little point there. Up the luma. And I'm thinking, fix the tones a little bit here. Do a little bit more. Here. Alexa, show me the driveway. Ah, okay. Alexa, stop. Okay, sorry, I got distracted. Uh, need just a little bit too right in there. Okay, let me export this. Set reference. Um, okay. So this image on the left, this is the original, right? And there were just too many elements here. And the highlights, obviously you you exposed for the subjects here, all the different cameras. But the composition just didn't work for me at all. There was just too many elements mixed in with these really strong highlights in the background. So what we're looking at on the left here is kind of a snapshot, right? So on the right, what I tried to do obviously is isolate one of the cameras, and this one was the only one that wasn't inside of a case, and have it work with the blown out highlights. So I tried to balance the light and the dark. I like the color better ultimately. I was kind of debating black and white, but then I kind of like that really nice strong wood and brass, right? Uh, I don't think you tell the whole story about this camera unless you see the brass and the wood and the color of that wood. So I think that looks good though. If I do it comparison this way, you know, I think that looks pretty good. Okay. Uh, let's see. And then the next one here, got one here from Even Inge Me. Okay. Evening me. I'm not sure how. Evening. Okay. Evening me. Okay. Got it. Evening me. uh, okay. We have some tracks and we have, and I'll get to the questions on in the chat section after I edit these. We have some sky here. I need to, I'm going to brighten this up just so I can see what's in the background. So this is the station kind of and a silo. Okay. Kind of like this angle. I like this part here. So again, there's a lot of elements in here, and I need to isolate. I kind of like this tree and this little structure here, and then the way the track is kind of wavy back in here, and then we can use the tracks here to lead up to this subject here. That's what I'm going to try and do. So let me apply basic preset. I'll just start with square. I don't think I'm going to end up with square. I think a 3x2 vertical. I could get in a little tighter. This is a little bit too strong in the foreground. The train is back here. Too far away. Let's tighten up. Try 5x4. Just cropping the hell out of everybody's images today. Out of balance now. I may recompose this again. I'm not happy with this, but I need to edit a little bit to see what other elements I can get to work here. Let me work with the sky a little bit. Okay, there's a little bit of yellow in there, but they're pretty much blown out. left that a little bit blue. And I'm going to push the shadows a little at a control point here. A little bit of red in there too, I think. Fix that spot. I'm getting there. Starting to see composition come together. A bit more. Okay, warm that up a little. Much. Uh, okay. Oh, this composition is still bothering me a little bit. Yeah, I can't make that. I'm not going to be able to make that particular composition work. Let me do it this way. I'm going to go with that. A new one. These shadows are a little bit stronger. Up the luma just a bit. A bit warmer. And let's tighten that luma also. Okay, just a tiny bit. Back to the sky. Oof, wow, that sky is tough. Just a little bit of haze down here that I think I need to keep. Okay, that's better. All right. One more. Wait, right? Yeah, that. Let me make a new one. Put a little bit more light down here. All right. And this needs to be maybe a bit warmer. All right, I'm gonna call it there. I could not get the composition exactly the way I wanted it. I wanted to try to minimize it to this right side, but there was too much track in the front and not enough of the elements that I liked up here with the crisscross patterns. Uh, but let's see how we did. Um, okay, so just a little tighter crop, bringing in the sky, adding a little warmth, and pulling up the shadows a tiny bit. Thinking could have done a little more. This just is a little bit flat on the left side. think. Okay. So let me do something. Let me just give me one more minute on this. What I want to do is tighten this up a bit. I'd like to try and it's this tower that's bothering me. All right. I'm gonna leave it there. This is a hard one for me. Uh, so here's the original on the right. This is my edit on the left, and I intentionally kind of blew out the sky up here because I was able to bring it in a little bit, but I just wanted to add a little bit. The image just looked too flat the way I had it before to my eye. So I'm sorry. There's a freaking fighter jet flying over my house now. Can't hear myself think. Uh, oh boy, those guys are brave. I got like 2 leaf blowers in my backyard right now. Two guys going at the leaves. And then I got this freaking Air Force base with the fighter jets flying over my head. It's driving me nuts. Okay, so I'm done with this image, but thank you, Evening Me. Interesting image. It just, the composition is just a little bit, it was really hard for me to figure out what to do here. But that's the best I can do. Okay, but thank you for sending that. And then this one should be pretty quick here. This is from Shakave. I got a little mixed up last week because I saw this image, but I didn't see that he had sent the raw image for me to edit. Uh, so let me do that real quick. I'm sorry I got that confused last week. But I can do this real quick. There's a little bit of a halo around the tree. Okay. I will concede to that. I think that was from, well, I don't really see it. It looks okay to me. Maybe on the left side? I don't know. It looks okay to me. I don't really see a halo. But hey, Alexa, stop. Okay, I don't need to see that anymore. All right. Let me work on chicaves real quick. And so I'm gonna make, let's apply basic preset. And I'm gonna just do a little editing first before I start working on the composition. It's a little bit opposite my normal routine. I need to get a feel for the different things in here. Oops, that's a little bit too a little bit. All right, I got to do that one separately. Let me just do the water. A new one here. Push the highlights. Tones a little bit. Maybe a little bit of contrast. A bit of, let it go cooler. A bit warmer. Pull this one down a little bit cooler. And if I can make it look a little bit by a very low flow brush. Okay. Sorry, I had to sneeze there. Let me see. I need to touch a little bit here. Okay. Do a new brush here. These I want to be a little darker. Maybe do it this way. Darker, darker, darker. Darker here and here. Okay. Then going on these seagulls, tighten up the luma. There. Nope, we'll come back to that. A very slight push here. I get you. All right, now composition wise, I think I go happening? Hmm. Okay, I think I'll call it there. Uh, how we're doing? A little bit of color in the grass. So with the yellows. There's a little bit of grass on the trees. I'm sorry, green on the trees. I think I'll work with composition though is just a little bit. Wonder if I did this. Like that. Okay, I like that a little better. All right, so let me export that and we'll call it. We'll compare it to what Jacob did. So yeah, here's the original. Obviously a lot of fog, very soft. So again, I tried to just add a little bit of light onto the seagulls here and make the water look a little more reflecty. And I saw some tiny bits of green leaves on the trees, like they're budding, like it's kind of coming in the spring. So I brought those out a little bit. So if we look at it kind of this way, uh, this is my final edit. And I think that looks pretty good. I want to compare this to what Shakabe did because Shakabe looks like he did a really nice job too. I'll make this the reference. So Shakabe, yeah, he brought in, oh, look, you can see the fence line very clearly here. So yeah, he went with the 16 by 9. I kind of thought about that at first, but I kind of like this vertical. I prefer the vertical here because this pier is just too long for me. I didn't want it to like dominate the, I don't know, this pier was too long for me. So I kind of like this little smaller framing. But I like the contrast. You have a little more contrast here than I do. I kind of tried to keep the fogginess. I like how you did the lighting. You did bring in the center light here much better than I did. Mine is much more subtle coming in from the top right. Okay. Oh hey Shakabe, so you're here. That's good. So I hope you like that edit. I like what you did. And then I also like what I did too. I would probably continue editing this. This is one of those shots where you have to kind of walk away and come back to, right? You don't want to just stare at it, do it all in one. I think this is one I'd have to come back to like the next day and look at again. But okay, so let me get to the chat and then we'll look at the edits you guys did of mine. Well, let's do that first. That'll go pretty quick. So here's my original. This is the original image. So let me set that as reference. So this is the original raw image. I shot this with the new OM3 and 300mm f4 with teleconverter. I thought this shot has a lot of potential. It's not too dissimilar from one of my other shots that is like one of my favorite shots of 2024. And I'll show that to you, but let's see what you guys did with this. Okay, yeah, I like this. Nice. This one is from Paul. Really love the golden color. Uh, that is awesome. You really brought the sort of golden hour light in. I think the camera sort of adjusted the white balance to be more neutral, but this is more like what I was seeing with my eyes. And yeah, it's a good crop. I miss the trees though. I like the tree line. All these verticals. So for me, I would have kept this. And then there's a little bit of white vignetting. And then this is a great vertical. Nice framing of these four up front, and then good fade off to the end. So I like this edit better that you did, Paul. Yeah, good job on the water. It's nice and crisp. Everything looks good. The only thing I would change is maybe soften this background a little bit, like reduce the micro contrast. So it's not quite it's a little bit gritty when you did all of this down here. And this one here, Bert. Okay, Bert. So a little bit of partial color going on here. Just sticking with the golden color. That's an interesting creative choice, but a very similar crop to what Paul did. And I like this one. This one is from William or William. Yeah, I like this group right here. All right, there's the original. I like how you grouped this and just got rid of pretty much everything else. But with this, how this one is a little bit different than what uh, Paul did. Paul included a little bit too much, I think, of the background. Whereas here, Bert has really cut out that background, so it's really no longer an element, and there's more focus on everything going on up here. So I like this crop a little better, although the processing is virtually identical. And then Canada, who is this? Jan. Jan, what are you doing here? You did a negative. That's interesting. And this is a full-on crop of just the geese in the front, right? So that's an interesting choice. Very interesting. And I think that's it. So I don't know. I think it's this one and this one that I like. So let me check the download area because Shakib said he's just done some stuff. Let me go to download area. So we'll download that. Oh, wow. So a few more images came in. If you guys are here, Bert is here, Jordan's here. I can edit these real quick. And then some comparison shots here. John follows. A lot came in. How am I doing on time? Let me check my time real quick. Then the Leaf people are done, and the jet, the Air Force, whatever fighter jet is gone. Oh, so now I can think again. Okay. We got a bunch in. Okay, so here's Shakab's edit. Oh, I like that, Shakab. I mean, you went totally opposite and didn't go with the golden hour type look, but a more muted, cold look. I like it. Okay, very good. This was the edit that, so Paul edited his own photo here, and compared to what I did, it's very different. He has a little bit more vertical. I like that a little better. This is more like a 3x2 crop, and what I did was square crop. But it's still a little bit dark for me. I kind of like the brighter image that I did here. And then see if I can find anything else. That was mine. It's mine. So Bert and Drew, Lamb. Okay. All right, how are we doing on? Oh, we're in 2 hours. So let me ask you guys. I can probably pull out another 30 minutes and edit the rest of these if you guys want. But I'm going to answer a couple of questions from the chat, and then if you guys are here and you want me to edit the rest of these, there's about 4 more. I can do it. So let's see. In the chat section, Drew sent a photo. Okay, I got it. There's a halo. Just going through the chat. So something about neighborhood noise. Yeah, well, while I'm editing the stream, I can't play music, right? So that's the problem. But Jan says, suggesting basically to play music while these other noises are going on. And I do. I have like a really nice, well, I don't want to say it's really nice, but I set up a really nice sound system in my living room that's what I listen to most of the day. And late dollar short, I sent a photo in. It can wait till next week. Okay, we'll see. If you want me to do it, though, I can do it today. And Shakab likes the edit I did. Thank you. And Admart says, I'm the person who submitted the second bird photo, and you made the image look so much better. Possible for me to get... Oh, yeah. Just email me, rob@robtrek.com. and let me know what image yours was, and I can send it to you. Uh, so that's my email. Just email me, and I can send it to you. Um, and John says you can leave mine to next week. So John and Drew said next week. Okay. And Smiley said sent 2 images. Paul says you prefer the square crop of your balloon. Really? I kind of like the vertical, but yeah, either way. Uh, Drew says you're here till the end. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is, let me see, this one. I'll just do them. I'll just do them. Let me give me just about a 1-minute break, and I'll come back and I'll just finish this. Why not, right? If you guys are all here, it seems like, but just give me about 1 minute. Okay, I'm back. Can you guys hear? Yeah. All right, good. All right, so let's see. Okay, we'll email you. Thanks. I'm here till the end. And John says I'm off to take some steam railway engines, so soon we'll send at least one in. Okay. All right. Let's just How about now? Okay, sorry about that. I was saying I'm just going to go ahead and go through this. I thought the sound was back on. My bad. Okay. Let me reset that. And we'll compare it. So here's the original on the left, and here's my edit. I might have gone in a little bit tighter, but I think that looks pretty good. Because you can just barely see there's a deer over here. But over here, it's clearly the deer is in the frame. Okay. The next one here, let me, oh, I didn't download the optic module, but let me get that in. And I remember there was a question I meant to get back to. 1 second. It was way up here from Friends of Green K. If you're still here, I'm sorry I missed this earlier. How do you duplicate a control point? Well, you create one control point like this, right? Like if I do the eyes and I want to push the exposure a bit, add a little bit of clear view. And I want to do the same thing to the other eye. All I have to do is click on it, and it makes an exact copy of what I just did. So duplicating is just a matter of once you make one, once I can select this one. So let's say I make a new control point. So I do plus, and it's a bigger one, right? And this time I want to make it darker, for example, right? So now I can click over here and make this darker. But if I want to go back to the other control point, I can click on this one. And I can delete this, but then add one maybe over here, like that. So it's going to duplicate this control point anywhere I click on the image. And if I want to duplicate this one again, I can just click anywhere on the image. So I hope that makes sense. So let me delete these. And we'll start over with this image. And I don't see any other questions. If you guys have any questions, you can just start putting them in now, and I'll try and get to them. All right, so let me do a control point. With animals, well, I need to think about a composition first. So let me crop in, and I'm just gonna do maybe a vertical like this. I don't know if I really need the legs even. And maybe come in really tight. Let's try. Try a little bit more square. Okay. We're almost there, a little bit taller. And then let's do the eyes, because this cat has really amazing green eyes here. So I'm going to give a little boost there in the shadows, and then give it some clear view and some micro contrast. Let's do the nose a little bit. I guess a little bit of clear view there. A little bit on the lips. And let's make something for the ears. Give it a little more reddish color. A little brightness there. A little bit of contrast, but let's shift it. Let's go to the reds here. And just push it a little bit. Then do sort of a vignette. So we're going to inverse that. Chroma and Luma down to 0. And just pull that in like that. Let's brighten it up a little bit. Okay, let me export that. Reset, do a quick comparison with this one. All right, so yeah, everything around here is blurred out and it's not very interesting. So I just cropped in on the face because the eyes were really, really powerful in this image. And then just kind of made it a little crispier, added a little bit of color back to the ears and the nose with clear view, and that's it. So, you know, I think that looks really good. So that's Drew. Nice cat. Is this your cat? Okay, let's see. We have one here from Smiley, I think, right? A little water droplet. Yeah, let's do a basic preset. I'll do a square one. Bring in the controls. And I kind of like this crisscross pattern right up here. And we'll just capture a little bit of the stuff outside. Then we'll add, just stay inside there. Make that a little brighter, a little more clear, some contrast. That's terrible. A little bit there, a little bit there. Pull that in. And then just a little bit more on the stems here. Just the highlights. Maybe the midtones a tiny bit. Okay. All right, I think that's all I would do. So I don't really need to export this one. So here's the original. So all I did was just make this sparkle a little bit and bring up the highlights here and there. I think that's all that needed. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? We have a beetle. I forget what these are called, but these are really interesting. They're usually hundreds of them kind of grouped together. It's interesting you got one by itself. So let's do basic preset. And we're going to crop in a little bit tighter. Just put them in the center. like that. And let's see, the eyes are interesting. Let's work there and there. We'll just bring these out a little bit more. Clear view and definitely some micro contrast. Okay, let's add a vignette. Like so. Invert that. Okay. And let me push shadows here a little bit. Need a little bit more in the shadows here. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I lost my mouse. Hold on. Let me change the battery in my mouse real quick. Come on. I need a battery. Oh. There we go. All right. A little bit there and there. All right. Let me export that. And set this as a reference. Compare it with okay. All right, so here's the original on the right. Basically, all we had to do is crop in and bring the shadows in a little bit. And then I like the red eyes, so I just amplified those a bit. And if we punch in, you can see there's, you can almost see the texture of the eyes in here. And on the original, you know, you can see really how DxO just, you know, pulled in the detail and work with the colors and everything. But yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Okay. And let's see, anything else in here? Oh, this bridge. I think I've seen this image before, or I've seen this bridge before in an edit that I did a long time ago. Probably John sent it in too. So this one, I remember what I did last time is I did a black and white on this. So let me apply basic preset, and I think John said to hold this till next week. No, John's here, so I'll just do it. So let me do a basic preset. I'm going to go right to a black and white. And compositionally, I like this tree. This water is not, it's oh. This part here is just off. I wonder if I can Do a little bit there. What can I do about this composition? Maybe bring it there. Okay. And then let's just work with this water a little bit. And pull the blacks in, give it a little bit of shine and micro contrast. Then let's push. Let me see, what would be best here? This and maybe some contrast. Okay. See if I can bring the leaves out a little bit. Let me look at the color again. Greens. Okay. All right. So what we'll do is we'll go down to the channel mixer and see if this greens and yellows maybe. It's not doing enough. And this has been disabled. So that's not going to help. No. So let me see if I can do it with a control point and use a color chroma mask. So if I tighten that up a bit, yeah, that's working. See if I can just give that a little bit of a boost. This one's maybe too strong. Okay. A bit there and some micro. Okay, and then this brickwork. I think this just needs some clear view. And I think the sky is clipped, so not much I'm going to do there. Yeah, the sky is clipped, so we'll just leave that alone. Now, do this, some micro contrast, a little bit of a push here and here. Okay, I think I'll call it there. So basically, it was a little bit too heavy here on the right side with this sidewalk. So that's why I went with this composition, getting rid of most of that. And I wanted to try to bring out and separate the green leaves with the background. so that you can see it a little bit more against this bridge. It didn't work out quite as well as I would have liked. Excuse me. But not bad. Not bad for a quick edit. And I think the black and white works well for this bridge. So if I do a split, there's the original and there's the edit. Okay. And I believe that was the last one. So I got through those pretty quick in less than 30 minutes. I should try and do all the edits that fast. All right, any other questions? Oh, I see Alan here. Thank you so much for your support, Alan. It's really appreciated. Again, I do have a 99-cent membership that supports, all the live streaming that I do for the photo editing, the shopping, and the normal photo chats. And, there's not any special perks for being a member. It's just really to support the work that I do here for 99 cents a month. Helps me out a lot. And it's greatly appreciated. So there's that. And let's see, Michael. Oh, hey, Michael, how are you? Good to see you. And yes, sir, that dude, the orange cat, king of the neighborhood. Yeah, he looked like a badass. And then Paul is asking, interested in what's the highest ISO you will use on your own one? I was quite happy with DxO recovered my balloon shot at 10,000. Yeah, it really depends on the shot, right? Sometimes 10,000 ISO is too high for like pulling out fine details like in feathers and stuff. And then other times, like on your balloon shot, the 10,000 ISO DxO had no problem with, right? It made it really look good. So when our eyes are really trained for certain subjects like human beings and certain animals, that's when we're very, very sensitive to AI noise reduction. And we can see, so we might not like fixing a 10,000 ISO image of somebody's face because we'll say, oh, look at that. Look at, you know what I mean? We can see sort of we're just very sensitive as human beings to other human being faces. So I think it really depends on the image. An image like this bridge, like man-made structures, and those kind of things. Certain animals, we're not really keen to their faces. Like if we denoised a lion's face, it would be perfectly fine at 10,000 ISO. Bridges, man-made structures, 10,000 ISO, no problem. Denoising those, like the balloon, for example. So it just depends on the image. But I would say in most cases, I'm fine at 10,000. I've denoised 25,000 ISO, right? And when you get up to about 100,000 ISO, then you're just sort of becomes an academic exercise, right? It looks okay, but yeah, you can tell it was a train wreck to start with. So yeah, 10,000, I don't have any problem. But you get really sensitive depending on what the subject is that you're denoising. And in most cases, it's fine though. Okay, I think that's it. So thank you everyone for sending those in. I really appreciate it. Become a member, send me a coffee, or use my affiliate links down below. There's some really good deals today on my deals page. So robtrade.com/deals. And if you want me to send you the edit that I did here in the stream, just email me, rob@robtrek.com, and I can email it to you. It's no big deal. So, but yeah, continue to send your images in every week. I'm happy to do them for as long as I can. Today was another long session, but you guys are awesome. So thanks so much for coming in. And don't forget this Sunday, I have my annual meetup with some more Micro Four Thirds enthusiasts, users, camera people, photographers, right? So be there for that. That's going to be a great session with Emily, Jimmy, Thomas, and Ben. But I guess that about wraps it up. So you guys have a great weekend.